um, which we as an organization, Democracy Out Loud, signed onto. And we're happy to say that behind the scenes, this was a victory. We did stop that international toxic waste from being dumped here in NC. And I feel like that's just a small margin of what La Machia Whittington does here in North Carolina. Yeah, I also wanted to say that a lot of us regularly attend educational spaces, like even our weekly meetings here at Democracy Out Loud are educational spaces. And as a result, we are constantly learning. However, I think it's very rare that we're able to attend these spaces that also radically change our perspective on something. For me, that's what her class, environmental justice, that's what her class did. I was already a social justice fighter at the time, but the framing that she used in her lectures completely recontextualized just how deep our classist and racist caste system runs, and how every aspect of social justice and oppression interconnects. Now, in that respect, I think she's a great speaker. Never met anyone that's as knowledgeable and as great of a speaker as she is. And so, yeah, I hope you guys get to hear some of that today. I will have to leave early to attend a demonstration here on campus, but hope you guys learned something.
Thank you so much, Nathaniel. Thank you. We're cheering you on.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Karen, I'm just so full. Nathaniel, I wasn't, I don't think I was fully prepared to receive all that blessing you just poured back into me. So I just deeply appreciate for having you in class not too long ago, just a couple months ago, and just very, very deeply grateful. The journey of being an educator, I taught K through 12 for many years and then transitioned to the collegiate space about 3.5, 4 years ago. And just, Nathaniel, thank you for, as a student, pouring back into me and letting me know that what I do, what I love, what I pray about every day manifests itself in a way that supports who you are, because you are phenomenal, you're powerful, and just sending you so much prayer and protection as you're on the front lines today. Y'all, so thank you so much for having me. I'm almost trying to follow that introduction, and just very grateful to be in space. I know when speaking with Karen, and thank you for having me again, it's really good to be on here. Ms. Liv, always great to see you. We began our journey back when I was at Friends of the Earth. This is probably around that 2017, 2018 era time, and did a lot of Hurricane Florence recovery work, a lot of protesting then for the Rainy Day Fund. We're sitting out there, Poor People's Campaign. Oh, I see Lita Herman on. Good to see you, friend. Good to see you. So it's good to be in the number and to meet new friends. And as Nathaniel mentioned, Karen, I believe you mentioned this as well last year, it has been a long arc in the fight for justice against PFAS and emerging contaminants and other pollution that has been poured deliberately and intentionally. And I say that with, the full breadth of facts and information that we can look at over the years that Nathaniel even mentioned we looked over in class. The intentionality of dumping all of this contamination in our waterways, well, thanks to you all signing on to a letter last year, and so many other folks across the nation, we were able to engage directly with the EPA, our state's DEQ, go into actual office conversations, not just sending the petition, but we sat down with their teams and we figured out a way together to stop over 4 million pounds of Gen X riddled toxic waste that was said to have been dumped in December. So we had a 30-day time turnaround. That's how tight it was. And sometimes it's like that. And it came in October that there was a request that came from the Netherlands to our US EPA, a certain office within the EPA. And unfortunately, it was approved. And the reason it was approved that the Netherlands could dump all this waste is because there was this old hidden trade agreement on the books that no one knew about, even up to the highest levels of the White House. No one knew about this antiquated law that allows for certain countries to dump their waste in the United States. And we also have an agreement to dump our waste in other countries. And there's about 16 plus countries on this agreement, an embargoes agreement. And because that's how it slipped in through the cracks. But because of our unification and us saying, absolutely, just because that law allowed for you to try to sneak in through the cracks, we're here to fill them. And we did just that. And we were able to stop that dumping of 4+ million pounds of toxic waste being dumped specifically in Bladen County, the same area PFAS was dumped several years ago that has made for massive cancer clusters and so much more illnesses that's around the southeast part of the United States, and also the most climate impacted, as we all know. So I just want to start by saying my appreciation for Democracy Now!, for your leadership, for your coming together in solidarity. That's what this looks like. And sometimes we wonder, does democracy work? It works when we work. It works when we work together. It works when we come together. And that's what we did. And sometimes coming together can be as simple as a student passing over a petition. Sometimes it can be as simple as a link to sign your name. And sometimes you don't see the impact of, well, what happened after I signed my name? Well, I'm here today as a testimony to me, my team, to our communities to say, because of you standing up, guess what? We now have cleaner water than we would have in December 2023 and beyond. And so, you know, as I look into a little bit today, and I do have a little bit of a slide deck to share some information. The top of January, I was very honored to be a keynote several times for various Dr. King honoring banquets, both in Hyde County, for the Greensboro NAACP, and again for the UAW. I was very honored to be able to be in space with the hard workers, the folks of the union, to really talk about here we are and what is our message. And I follow the lead of Dr. Barber. I follow the lead of so many elders. Dr. Barber, actually, when I was 16 years old, he visited my hometown, and him and my grandmother were the first two people who gave a financial donation to a nonprofit me and my brother put together. This was many years ago. And this is before I knew. I was like, who was Dr. Barber? Didn't know I was 16. And to understand the years later, to commit to the Poor People's Campaign several years ago, to be partners, to be a part of it, was paying that back, paying that forward. And so that service continues. And so my message for this year, many folks are asking me, we're in an election year, and I'll keep it nonpartisan, but we have to be very clear and we have to be very strategic and in unification in order to save our democracy from decimation. That is where we are. In 2024 will set the tone for the next 50 years, 100 years. It will set the tone for next year because elections are every single year, but it will foster and it will support whose ideals come into office that will then be codified into law. And we have to understand that every year when we celebrate Dr. King, the dream that Dr. King had for all of us, it's on lease. I know someone placed into the chat, talking about the voter disenfranchisement and the voting ID law. When I was speaking with my people in these various communities just in January, I had a discussion and I said, did you realize, do you know, and many do because they were in the movement, but some needed the reminder that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is renewed every 25 years. It is not a permanent enshrinement within our state nor our US Constitution. Our dream is on lease. So that vote comes back up again in 7 years. That's how close we are to the renewal of the Voting Rights Act. So if we are not going out and voting in numbers and voting based on the issues, and the issues that were present during the Civil Rights Movement are still the issues of today. And that's housing and gentrification. That's wartime and making sure that we stand on the right side of history. That's environmental and climate injustice, as even Dr. King mentioned a quote in 1966 and in 1964 about polluted air in cities and polluted, contaminated waters. That was his quote, not mine. The issues of today are the same issues we've been fighting because the dream is on lease. And so that is my urgence of today and beyond, is that we have to renew that dream every single year. This is the renewal time. When folks tell us, and I am a student of my elders, I'm a student of my community, I'm a student of folks and people who have done this work before me to learn, and I'm a student of the generations who are coming up because they may have a new way to do things. And so when we hear our ancestors paved the way, that's what I hear in my community. I was reminded when my mother said, she said, well, you realize your ancestors paved the way, but that means you always have to renew pavement. When you journey on the same road to freedom, and I love that opening song, you have to understand that road gets war torn. That road is heavy laden and it is filled with so many people who are just struggling and trying to make it, that are bringing their horse, their buggies, their carts, their feet, and they are marching to freedom. But that march on that road has to be repaved. That asphalt does get worn down and potholes do occur. And when one person hits that pothole, it may be out of alignment that their car becomes. It may be a flattened tire that happens, but then we all have to ensure that person gets those repairs, or guess what? The road to freedom gets just, guess what? Backed up. We know what happens on traffic when someone breaks down on the road. So what we thought wasn't our issue, when we thought the people that are incarcerated wasn't our issue, when their freedom is clogged, it becomes all of our issue because the road is backed up. When we look at our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ plus community, when there are issues of violence, there are issues of homelessness are happening, we didn't think it had anything to do with us, but when one person is broken down on the road, it delays progress to freedom. The road our ancestors paved must be repaved every year. And this is where we are. And, I put together a slide deck and I'll share it, even if it's in mail afterwards, Karen, because sometimes I just pray and I go with what's laid on my heart, what's laid on my spirit. And this is where we are. When I was doing some research, trying to prepare comments for a segment on PBS, and they were discussing, the topic was Hamas in Israel. And of course, it was on my heart. I'm Afro-Indigenous. I know what genocide looks like for my people. I know what land loss looks like for my people. It's different, right? When when you're having to prove what you know with facts and ideology, but you know the history in you, you know it. It's been etched in your DNA. And I looked, and in the research, of course, it's a vast topic. But as I was digging, I looked at the previous presidential administration, the Trump administration. I say that because he's the previous public president, not saying it as a candidate, nonpartisan. So I looked at the record and I said, wait a minute. The contract that we were in the middle of negotiating to ensure a two-state resolve was dismantled under that administration. When we looked at, our embassy was moved strategically during that administration, but then it came to fruition in this administration. What we do in the past continues. History is not resolved, absolved, and dissolved. It is a continuation. And then I began to see that the same administration who dismantled these peacetime conversations and these contracts that would save so many lives was the same administration that was responsible for environmental protection rollbacks, over 125 of them. The United States, we have been one of the top 10 polluters in the entire globe responsible for fossil fuel emissions. And during that administration, it rolled back countless protections of our waterways. It rolled back corporate accountability that would have required corporations to reduce coal ash storage, that would reduce mercury and arsenic going into our public waters. And then when I look at the fight we had to stand up and take last year, it was a response to those rollbacks under a new administration. So we are at a dire precipice that if we don't vote in local, state, and federal candidates who are saying and placing the issues forward, not what they think are identity politics. Let's be very clear. I do believe in representation, but it has to have some power behind it. You have to have conviction behind it. You have to have policy purpose behind it. So if there are no issues coming from these candidates talking about how do we ensure that the next candidate that becomes our president, whether it's re-election or whatever we may be facing, how do we make sure they're not continually to roll back what is already creating massive deaths in our communities domestically and internationally because we are shipping our waste as well? It is a global responsibility what we are facing in 2024. It is a domestic responsibility that we are facing in 2024. In this previous administration, I haven't agreed with everything. Many of us have not in recent, what we are calling to prioritize humanity. And then I've laid myself conflicted and I've said, well, wait a minute. I do know that the administrator of the EPA has made sure to try to roll forward what was rolled back from that previous administration. And Michael Regan started doing that in 2021 and 2022. And every year, if we remove him out of office through not voting the way we need to vote, where does all of that roll forward move to? Where will we be? Where will those billions of dollars that he joined with Congress that has been given in environmental and climate justice dollars, that's been given through the Investment Reduction Act, that's been given through ARPA, where does that money go? Because that money is here through 2026. So whoever gets voted in 2024, at the end of this year, they will have billions of dollars of a budget to either dedicate it to more war or to actually invest in the communities, ceasing terrorizing other folks and actually giving it to the people here domestically that are struggling with houselessness and homelessness, that are struggling with gentrification, that are struggling with health disparities. We are trying to get folks signed up with Medicaid expansion right now. Governor Cooper just signed an executive order 303 that finally supports returning citizens, that will actually help them get Medicaid expansion coverage and other necessities as they come back into civilization, into community. What happens if the next governor that comes in rolls that back? We have made amounts of progress in the past 4 years to undo what the previous administration did. And the roll forwards that we have done, they've saved lives. The town of Ivanhoe in Sampson County in 2022, me and my team, we led a virtual workshop and we partnered with other environmental groups. We brought in Conservation Network, we brought in Black Alliance, and my group is Democracy Green and the Green Majority, to be clear. And we educated and informed community on how to apply for the federal dollars that just came through. And in 6 months, the town of Ivanhoe, who had been protesting and advocating for 20 years for clean water hookup to their county government, to their municipal water, we were able to get them that money in 6 months, over $13 million. The next year, last year, we went in with the town of Maysville, who their water has been cut off since 2019 because of PFAS. And they've had to get water from their neighboring county commissioners from their neighboring cities. We came in last year. We even came in with Administrator Regan and Secretary Visor. And behind the scenes, Democracy Green worked with the town manager as they were already in their flow. And by the end of last year, around the time of our petition, we were able to go to Maysville for ribbon cutting because their community now has water, clean water, and a new reverse osmosis machine where everybody has clean, filtered water. We did that in under a year. With the money that's been made available, y'all, the impact is real and it is here. And so my charge today is the dream is on lease, but we've had to see, and we have to see what we're doing actually matters. What we are doing actually has saved lives. And if we don't see ourselves in that way, we will always be victimized and used and divided for other folks to use our power when we don't recognize our own. And so I definitely appreciate, I'll send over the slide deck, which had some data on it, because I'm a data person. I just had it in my spirit today to arrive in this way, and I've appreciated being in this space because I feel supported, seeing so many familiar faces, new faces. Some of you I've seen in the beloved community center space with the Johnsons, and I call Mama Joyce, a mama for a reason, and Mr. Brandon, who is definitely one of my people. We're all from the mountains. So I'm a product of my people. And so I thank you for having me. And the dream is on lease. And this year is up for annual renewal. Thank you, Karen.
Wow.
Yeah, I just want to breathe for a minute and take that all in. That Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop